Welcome back to Collaboration Conversations. I'm your host, Regina Partain Bergman, CEO of Bridgeport Strategy. I am delighted to bring another guest co host and her panelists that she's brought to the show today for what I know will be another amazing conversation about collaboration. So let me begin by introducing our co host today, Cathy Derksen. Cathy is a speaker and author, and she is the founder and CEO of Inspired Tenacity. I can't wait to hear more about that. Cathy, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being our guest co-host today.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I love doing this kind of thing. That's just a fun conversation with a bunch of fun ladies.
Awesome. I can't wait to get to meet everybody. So, Cathy, would you take a few moments and share with us a bit about your journey, how you've gotten to where you are, who you serve, and why that's important to you?
Well, perfect. And yes, bringing that journey and the rest of the story into a few brief points rather than the whole adventure. So basically, I have gone through two complete career changes. I describe it as about 12 years ago that I threw my life up in the air and reinvented it on the way back down. Left a 25-year career, left a 25-year marriage, two teenagers in tow, starting from scratch, figuring out what is it that I'm here to do. And at that time, I knew that I really wanted to focus on helping women and helping them on a level that would actually change their life, like to provide some kind of service that was really life altering. And at that time, I went into financial planning thinking that was the answer, but it wasn't. 10 years later, I left that behind knowing that I needed to do my thing. And so now my main focus, how I do support women, is by creating multi-author books. So an opportunity for them to share their journey, use it for building their business, their visibility, collaborating with international groups of women. And I have found that it really is a life-changing thing for the women that participate. So that's kind of what I do, and the why really is my heart is with helping women, especially midlife women. I find that so many of us out there are feeling stuck in what are we doing with the rest of our life. We have to plan to live into our 90s and possibly into our hundreds, and hopefully, very fit and mentally stable and able. And so I figure the more we get social and busy and interacting and connecting and doing new things, that's what's going to keep us that way. So that is what I do.
That is awesome. I love the work that you're doing. That is wonderful. And you're so right. I mean, we really have come into a time of people recognizing that they're not prepared for the future, or they don't recognize who they are outside of what they do.
Yeah.
And really getting in touch with who they really are and what they really want out of life. So important. So thank you for what you're doing. Cathy, would you please introduce each of these lovely ladies and have them share a bit about their journey, who they serve, and why?
Perfect. Yes, I would love to. And I am just going to do a brief name and let them elaborate on all the rest of it, of what they do and why they do it and what their journey has been. I'll follow along on my screen. So Mindy is beside me on the screen. Mindy, tell us who you are. What's been your journey?
Hi. Thank you for having me. I loved hearing about your journey, Cathy, and that's one of the reasons I think that we connected so well. Is I too had a 25-year career in IT. So my background is in technology, and I made a significant pivot in 2020 during COVID, and decided to go into life coaching. So I had always had a life coach as in my career. When I became a leader, like in 2001, I started coaching with my aunt, who was a master life coach. And ever since then, I always wanted to be a life coach. And yet I pursued the path of least resistance, the one that I was prescribed to. Like, oh, you go to school, you do this, you keep moving up. And during COVID, I found myself without a contract. So I started a company, my IT consulting company in 2013. Did that for 10 years, and I still wasn't finding what I was looking for as I continued to pivot. So in 2020, when I lost that last contract, I thought, this is the opportunity for me to really connect with my purpose and figure out what that was. And it ended up coming back up, that life coaching concept. And I spent my whole career really helping other visionary leaders execute their plans. I did that really well. So that's what I do now for women. I work with women with really big hearts and really big ideas and dreams and help them create that and manifest that in their life. And one of the biggest reasons, I always say, part of my journey is watching my mother not do that. So, I had like received and inherited the generational gift of perfectionism, people pleasing, overworking, proving myself all the time. And my mother was like, is the smartest woman I know. She was my idol. I wanted to be just like her, until I realized I didn't want to be like her at all, because she was burned out, overwhelmed, and really just destroyed her body in the process. So that's what I want to do, is I want to help women that are in that place. I used to say, I help women recovering from a male-dominated industry pursue their passion and the life of their dreams. And I help them put a plan together to do that, like actively participate in making a life that they love. And that's what I'm passionate about, because I saw that my mother had so much left on the table, and I did too. I would have just continued on doing that, not even like waking up to something different in life, like peace and joy and love. And I can go on and on. So I'm going to stop there and hand it over to the next guest. But thank you for having me.
Perfect. Thank you, Mindy. All right, Suzanne, you're next up on my screen.
Awesome. Yes. And I'll just echo what Mindy said. Thank you so much for gathering us together. One of the things I know about you, Cathy, is you are a master connector and collaborator. And anytime you say, hey, I think you should meet this person, my answer always is yes.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for bringing us together for this conversation. I'm Suzanne Jabor. I am a grief educator, and I work with businesses and organizations to learn about grief, how it really works, and become more griever friendly. And, people always say, like, how did you end up doing that? And I wish I had a happy story to tell about that, but that's not how it works for people like me who've become called to work in the grief field. Normally we're there because of our own life experience.
Yeah.
And that's certainly the case for me. I pivoted this direction after the death of my son, Ben. He died in September of 2020 at the age of 22. And that was exactly as disruptive and horrifying and tragic as you would imagine, if you can allow yourself to even imagine what it would be like to have a young adult child die, or any child die. And what I learned really quickly was that I didn't know enough about grief to be able to do it in a way that felt healthy. Because it has such a taboo and we don't talk about it, I hadn't learned from people around me what they had done. So it really, has over time become my mission to have these conversations, to talk about it, to share my story, so that for people who don't feel able to speak and don't feel empowered to share their story, people are learning more about grief, breaking down those taboos slowly and gently. And really, my focus has become about grief education for a couple of reasons. What I learned very quickly is that people don't show up for each other in times of grief and loss because of fear and lack of knowledge. And to me, the easy counterbalance to both of those is education. Because we know, when we know more about something, we're prepared to try something new. We're prepared to be a little bit uncomfortable as we learn a new skill. And that's really what we need in this grief place. And I've pivoted again to, it's this constant, entrepreneurship is so fun because you get to kind of go, do I go there? Do I go there? And so I've ended up now really focusing on businesses and organizations, because what I've learned, fittingly today through collaboration, is the most powerful places to go into are those that already have shared agreements. They already have a culture. And you can go into those spaces and progress so much more quickly because you're not trying to bring people together first. They're already together. So that, businesses already have those shared agreements. They have that shared culture. They also have a big gap that needs filling, no matter how much they care about their employees. They have a gap of knowledge and understanding that mirrors the gap that is existent in our broader society. And grievers are really suffering at work. You're expected to go back very quickly if you get any time off at all and pretend like nothing happened, which is an impossible ask.
And I've discovered through, tons of research and exploration and really becoming a student and teacher of this topic is it's wildly expensive. So the most recent number that came out last year was from a study that was specifically about grief in the workplace. And their costing of the expense to businesses in the US annually, so this is every year in the US only, at over $100 billion. So there's big money being lost. There's big leaky buckets in organizations that they don't know how to shore up. And so that's what I'm here to help people with.
Perfect. I love that. And yes,
Wow.
we could just take that conversation on for hours. And
Yes, we need to talk, Suzanne.
Absolutely.
There you go. Connection there. All right. Colleen, you're up next. What's new with you?
Oh my goodness. And I'm going to echo what these other ladies have already said. What a cool room this is. Like, I just love saying yes and showing up. I know. Cathy, you're amazing. Thank you for putting us together. And Regina, thank you for this concept.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Cool. I'm so excited to participate. So a little bit about me and kind of where I come from and why I do what I do kind of starts a long time ago. It starts back in 2004. I live in the panhandle of Florida. So I'm in the West Coast, very West Coast portion of Florida. And back in 2004, I was a financial advisor. And I learned that I loved networking. And I loved helping to support women that didn't know much about finances, but that were in complete control a lot of times of their family's finances. So I ended up going to lots of networking meetings and interacting with women there. There was something about, I don't know, I was, of course, 20 years younger, male-dominated industry, Mindy. You know all about that. And Cathy knows as a financial advisor, it's really tough for women. It's really tough in that industry. And for me to find clients, I didn't want to do the things that the traditional advisors did. I didn't like what I called chicken dinner seminars. Ever been to one of those? Not so fun. Not for the person putting them on. I didn't want to go knock on doors through neighborhoods. And I also didn't love cold calling. Although at one point in my career, they called me cold call cowgirl because I could call more people. I could dial like crazy. But that's what you do when you're in a male-dominated industry. You do what it takes to really get ahead. And for me, what I learned was networking was the area that I could really excel in. And so I was at every networking event. And then in 2004, at a very high point in my career, 10 years into building a business that was commission only, our area got hit by a devastating hurricane. And it destroyed our entire area. Now, thank goodness we didn't lose lives, but buildings, restaurants, businesses, homes, everything was destroyed. And it not only didn't destroy just the physical landscape, it also destroyed how business was being done in the town at that time because networking stopped overnight. There was still networking, but it wasn't the same type of networking. It was more about how can I find ice? Who knows where I can get some gas to power my generator because my refrigerator is going to, all my food's about to spoil. So networking really changed right after a crisis. And what I didn't realize back then was the huge potential of pulling people together in collaborative, very unrestricted containers that they could come together and help support each other. And quite honestly, I just stumbled into it. I went to lunch with a couple women, probably because I wanted to sit somewhere there was air conditioning, to be honest. And we went to lunch. I didn't even know these women very well. I just knew what they did in business. And I thought for sure these women have it going on. They're going to be able to help me because I didn't know what I was going to do. And these women, what I was surprised about, they didn't know what they were doing either. They looked like they did, but they really had no clue on the inside. And when we dropped those barriers and we just said, oh my gosh, if I were you, this is what I would do. And how can I support you in what you're doing in the world? Because I had a million ideas for Natasha, who owned a cleaning business right after a disaster of what she could do. And I had a million ideas for Kathleen, who was the marketing manager of a professional employee organization. I was like, oh my gosh, I have so many ideas, but I didn't know what to do for me as a financial advisor. The great thing was those women knew what to do for me.
Right.
They knew what to tell me. And that's what I realized when you put yourself in like-minded areas with people that don't have anything to destroy you with, to take from you, to steal from you. When you do it in a very non-competitive and a very collaborative environment, it's amazing what information can come from that. And so that was way back in 2004. What I also wasn't prepared for was that was the birth of what I call my Oops Baby, which is now a 20-year-old nonprofit, a 501c3 nonprofit that I continue to run in the Pensacola area. I am a champion for women. If you look at my LinkedIn, it says I'm a chief table shaker, lead visionary, and head cheerleader, because that's what I do for women in business. And I'm super passionate about helping women get out of their own way, because I see huge money that they're leaving on the table. Women, when they're really strong, when they're really doing what makes their businesses the most efficient and effective, we can add 5, 7, $20 trillion to our GDP that we're currently leaving on the table. And I absolutely believe we women, we can do it by working together, by doing exactly what we're doing today, by collaborating. And I'm so thankful, Cathy, for bringing this together.
I'm glad you're here.
That is so awesome. Awesome. Cathy, thank you for bringing this wonderful group of women together. So let's dive in. I'm excited to hear the wisdom that you each have to offer for our listeners. And I think that the logical place for us to go is, what would you say to other women who are sitting out here listening to this conversation and wanting to get involved in collaborative ventures with other women, but not knowing how to get started, not knowing where to go, what to do, what to say, who to contact? So let's just dive in and start sharing your wisdom, ladies. So feel free to just offer up what you have to say, and let's just do this.
Well, I think the first thing I would say is to really just be brave, step into communities that you've never been in before, and really trust that there are women that are out there that are looking to collaborate and to support you. I mean, I think a lot of us, especially, through our teenage years, there was a lot of not so nice girls, and a lot of us kind of moved away from having female friends. But I'm finding now, and maybe it's just the circles that I go in, that I've created and been part of amazing collaborations and support systems. And like Colleen was saying, that when you bring women together and create that safe container where they know they can let that guard down and really be honest about what they're doing and how they're doing. And it's amazing how we can support each other.
That is a really good point, because if we've come from corporate, our relationship with other women, typically in corporate, is not that good. We're operating in that male world, and we tend to take on more of those male characteristics when we're operating in that world. And I think there's a huge level of distrust that occurs oftentimes. Would you agree with that, ladies? And so there's a shift, isn't there, that has to, that we each go through. If you come from that corporate world and now coming into this more entrepreneurial, collaborative world, there's a mental shift that has to take place.
Yeah, and I would like to echo what Cathy said about the safe environment. I think that's one of the best pieces of advice I got when I started out as an entrepreneur, was building my own network of safety, of people who believed in me and saw where I was going, as opposed to the person that I was for so long. Like, I was really stepping out into something new, unknown territory. And to do that with strangers is crazy. You want to be around people that really hold you and support you. And so that's what I did for myself. And that's what I ended up creating as a group of women. I love that Colleen calls herself a chief cheerleader. I do too. I mean, I talk about that all the time, that like, I'm your biggest cheerleader. If you're in my group, if you're in my circle, I you can count on that. And I started a company called Bridgeville Networking and Coaching Community, going back to your networking, Colleen, because I wanted to have that safe space for women to come and connect and feel supported and heard. Like, what are the challenges? You're not alone in feeling the way that you felt. I felt so alone. I either had women that I worked with that, oh, I absolutely loved. I mean, we all had our best friends at work, right? But they were constantly like validating all of my fears and validating all of my challenges and helping me just stay in my defensive zone, right? Or the other women that were the competitive ones. So when I created Bridgeville, I brought women together to talk about that stuff. And the biggest thing that they were excited about was removing that competition and holding like a sense of love for one another. Like, it was really beautiful to see that expansion in my group when we did that. So the safety is huge, to be able to give a space to talk.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll echo that as well, Mindy. And I think for me, it was a little bit different. So I know, Regina, you talked about maybe, some women in the corporate world maybe don't play real nice. And that's absolutely true. I experienced that. And Mindy, you helped by creating your own safe circle. And that is so important as well. For me, it was a little different. The reason I hesitated with collaborating, I think initially, was because I looked at it as a sign of weakness. I looked at it as like, oh my gosh, why would I have somebody do something that I could learn how to do myself? Like, that's taking something away from me. And I don't know about you ladies, but I really struggled with that. That was really tough for me. And running a nonprofit doesn't make it easy because it's all mostly volunteers. So it almost re-emphasizes that fear of like, why should I be giving somebody something that I could do myself? Why would I be asking somebody to do something that I could do myself? And to be honest, for me, it was my coach who really helped me reframe the word delegate, because I thought it was delegation that was my problem. I thought I struggled with letting go of stuff. People always told me, Colleen, you're a control freak. And I probably am. Like, that's probably way true. But not in this realm. In this realm, delegation was a fear of me feeling inferior and feeling like why would I ask somebody to do something? It sounds almost below me or below them. It was a weird dynamic for me. And what she reframed that word for me, instead of saying delegation, I now look at collaborations as leverage. Because when I changed that word in my head from delegate to leverage, all of a sudden I went, oh my gosh, if I don't hand this to somebody else to do, I'm actually holding them back from something that could take them further ahead. So for me, the reason to not collaborate wasn't for some of the other reasons you mentioned. It was something completely different for me.
I like that. Yeah. Suzanne?
Yeah. Yes, and, yes to all of those things. I love the idea of like needing to be brave. You have to find those safe spaces. You have to look internally at what's holding you back. What I would say to someone who's thinking, oh my gosh, like, could this actually work for me? Is, yes, and we're all here to say, yes, collaboration is amazing. It really doesn't need to be big and scary. You can reach out to someone who either does something similar to you or does something complementary to you and have a virtual coffee. It's so easy now to collaborate because you just need to reach out to enough people. People say yes all the time. I love having virtual coffees with people. I get to know them, get to know a little bit what they're about. And then you can look at, well, how can we support each other? Because the reality, which is not what we think it is, the reality actually is that the majority of women understand that a rising tide lifts all boats. The majority do. And the majority aren't enjoying, if they're trapped in that competitive world, they're not happy there. They're looking for something different. And the something different is collaboration. It's about connection. It's about reaching out and saying, like, I need some help and you probably do too. And how can we help each other? What do you know that I need to know? What do I know that you need to know? Who can I connect you with? All of those things are just there for the asking. And so, full circle back to Cathy's opening is you just have to be brave enough to ask, because people will come forward.
I love that. And being brave, that's I think you've all expressed bravery in some form there. Especially if you've stepped from the corporate world, I think there is definitely that level of bravery that's needed, and can take you quite a ways. Just thinking here where we want to go with this. So as you have expanded your own collaborations, as you've done that, what's been some of the biggest benefits that you've received from collaborating more? And those can be internal or external.
Well, I think for myself, some of the things, like using the example of the books that I put together, where I bring 20 women from around the world who would have otherwise never known each other, bring them together in this project where they're each just contributing part of, piece of the puzzle. But in doing that, they're meeting each other, they're getting to know each other. And it's amazing the collaborations that have come out of that, just putting these women in that same soup of, hey, we're doing this together. Who are you? What are you about? And it just naturally starts happening. And it's actually been quite amazing. And how it really kind of hits me is when I then see the next level of collaboration that comes out of the collaboration that I started. So it's, here's the beginning. Now what's the next collaboration? And where is it going from there? To me, that's what really warms my heart and gets me excited when I see it growing.
Yeah, that's what I call that ripple effect, and being part of that ripple effect.
I was going to use that term too.
Oh, yeah. That is the best, most exciting thing, being part of the ripple effect and knowing that you are changing a life. And with that, then they go out and change the world when you have an impact on them. Mindy?
Yeah, when Cathy said that, I was reminded that just even on LinkedIn, our networks become each other's networks. And I saw Cathy go on to a podcast of a friend of mine. Like, I didn't know they were connected, and now they're connected. And to be able to watch women sponsor one another that way and hold one another up that way, it just warms my heart. So that expanded network of safety that we talked about before. And then the other thing that I think that is such a benefit of collaboration, especially in the groups of women that, like Cathy, you said you find yourself in these different circles too. I'm sure you all do, where it's safe to talk about our strengths and celebrate who we are. If we're in corporate, we've spent a long time stifling that and not letting people see that, and we're not speaking up about that kind of thing. So that's something I definitely encourage. So I think that's such a benefit to be in a space that's collaborative and safe, is to tap into each other's, like Colleen said, leverage your skills. But how do you know what you can leverage if you're not even allowed to say what your strength is, right? Yeah. So to be able to allow women to say, this is who I am, this is what I can do. So now you can see each other and you know what you're looking for and you know if you will connect. So I think that's something significant.
Agreed.
Absolutely. And I'll add another thing in there as well. I agree with you, Mindy. And for me, one thing that collaboration helps me with is that I seem to try harder when I'm working with somebody else. And maybe that's not such a great thing. Maybe that says some stuff about the way I work myself, but I like to support other people. That's part of my natural essence of me, is that I really feel good when I'm doing something with somebody else. I like working by myself. I'm an introvert, but when it comes to delivering impact and with moving the world forward, I love doing that with other people. And what I find is that other people typically have better ideas than I do. So not only does it help me work harder, it helps me validate that by adding other people, there is that synergistic effect. There's other ideas, there's information, there's experience outside of what I've had that can absolutely add value. And for me, that's one of those unexpected benefits of collaboration, is that I try harder myself, but I also validate that by trying harder, it helps improve what I'm doing as well.
Love it.
And I think building on that and, what we've been talking about so far, the thing that I see with collaboration too is such a big benefit is, it kind of brings together so many of the things that we've said. Other people often can see our vision bigger and broader and more impactful than we can. They can see an essence of us that we don't have access to yet, that, a piece of our future self, a piece of who we are now that we just don't know how to leverage or take advantage of. And it's having that reflection and having someone else say, oh, but like, yeah, you could totally take that on. Or, when you're working on a project together and they say, oh yeah, you can do that. And sometimes it's things that we don't even really believe for ourselves. And then, of course, all of our great conditioning hooks into what Colleen's talking about. And we do an exceptional job because someone else has said we can, right? But it builds our own confidence. It builds our own understanding of what gifts we have and what talents we have and what we have to offer when we have, that safe space, that container of women who care reflecting back at us. Oh, yeah, you could do that. Or, yeah, I'll take on this piece. What's the most powerful thing for you to do? And then we each do the thing that we're the best at. It's brilliant.
Yeah. That's so interesting that you said that, Susan, because the next question I was going to ask is, how has collaborating expanded your own view of who and what you are and what you're capable of? And how have you seen your own growth through collaborations? Yeah.
Do you want to start that one, Suzanne?
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I kind of answered it already. What I would say about that is that, we can't do what we're on the planet to do. We can't become the person we're supposed to become. We can't have all of this growth and expansion by ourselves. It's actually impossible. And we've been conditioned to really value independence and strength and all of those things in a way that kind of dims our light. And so one of the things that happens with collaboration for me is when you see when you see other people reflect back what they see in you, it allows you to see a different part of yourself that maybe you weren't brave enough, comfortable enough, whatever. There was some kind of gap there that you couldn't see. And it really, for me, has been such a mechanism of growth and expansion.
I want to hear from others, but I also want you to reflect a little bit in this process of how difficult was it to accept those, what that reflection that people are giving you, that how hard was it? How long did it take you to adjust to seeing that strength in yourself? I mean, because I think sometimes we have to have some adjustment time, and maybe we need to be told more than once that we are this.
Yes. Many more times than once.
Many more times than once.
And I think, what popped up for me, which I think is so related in a weird way, is the difficulty we have receiving compliments even.
Exactly.
Like I had to decide that my answer to a compliment wasn't going to be, oh, it's nothing, or, oh, I just got it. It was on sale, or, whatever weird things we say. I practiced intentionally just saying thank you.
Yes. And that's a tough one, especially.
And that's where I started, but it really was about just saying thank you. Like I can receive this compliment.
Exactly.
And then I was fortunate enough to have brilliant women around me that, just kept doing what they were doing.
I think that's a big part of it. Being in
finding power partners
space that we were talking about. And Suzanne and I were in a mastermind last year that was, I think that was one of my favorite parts of that group, was that we truly did. There was 20 of us from around the world. They would actually come together in person a few times a year and be together and focusing on that really mastermind of digging into, okay, what's your dream? What is it you want to do? And then kind of build that safe, constructive feedback of, yes, we're here with you. We hear you. We see you. We're coming with you. That safe feeling of being supported in your crazy dreams, because all of us were working on something big. It wasn't just how do I get to the next thing? It's like, well, what's big? What's the next bigger? Now we'll go 10x from there. What does that look like?
Wow. And isn't that an amazing feeling to be surrounded by those people who believe in you and can see more for you than you can see for yourself?
Yes.
Yeah. Mindy?
Yeah, the first thing that came to mind when you asked that question was for me, my confidence just expanded. And that's really what I focused on when I started my business, because when you're an entrepreneur, everything that you do, you run into yourself. I think some of you have said that already on the show, but you run into all of your limiting beliefs. The overworking, the proving yourself, Colleen, like I've got to figure this out on my own. That was a big deal for me to go, oh no, I don't actually have to do that. It's not a sign of weakness. So I built a lot of authentic confidence through my journey of my own transformational life coaching, and then what I do through others, I think, is helping them see who they are, be vulnerable with themselves, and build the confidence to just be themselves.
Yeah,
a big piece of it.
Absolutely. Colleen?
Yeah, so same thing as every one of you here have echoed. It's absolutely true. I think women even are naturally better collaborators because we're so good at teamwork. We're so good at working as a unified front. We're so good at making sure everybody's taken care of. And collaboration to me is a great way to do that. And it absolutely validates just what Mindy was saying. It reminds us who we are. And it lets us see it. Suzanne talked about this as well. See it in a little bit of a different light. See it from somebody else's perspective. And sometimes that's all we need as women in business is to have somebody see us and somebody to say, oh my gosh, I mean, we know what we're doing in the world, but a lot of times we're running so fast that we don't even stop to recognize it. And that's what collaborations to me really does, different than in an employer-employee relationship, because a collaboration, it's almost like leveling the playing field.
Yeah.
You're both coming to the same table together.
Yes.
And together you're going to do something rather than, hey, I'm inviting you to come to my table and this is my table that I'm going to dictate what's happening. This is a community table. And that's why I'm so big about being a table shaker, because I think we need to change those dynamics. And collaboration is so perfect for women and such a great way to get started in building that type of arrangement.
So quick question based on that. Do we have to be equal with those that we're collaborating with? In other words, does everyone at the table have to be a CEO? Does everyone at the table have to be at the same level in their careers? Do we have to be equal?
I would say my favorite groups are ones that we're all from completely different backgrounds, doing different things. And so really our level or our status in our business really is irrelevant. Yeah. It's more what our heart brings to it, what our imagination brings to it, what our ability to empathize and support and encourage. And yeah, that mix of all kinds of people from different backgrounds and different levels, to me, that's my favorite part, my favorite arrangement.
That's cool. Anybody else on that?
Yeah, I'll say that it depends on really the collaboration for me. I mean, to me, it's just like anything else. It's a venture that you're getting into, and it's all really, it's driven by the goals of the venture. So if the venture was to drive engagement for CEOs that are expressing a certain frustration in the world, well, then maybe having CEOs at the table would be important. But if you're, like Cathy's talking about, if you're working on a collaborative book project together, not everybody in that collaboration needs to be at the same job title. And there's so many different types of collaborations. I mean, collaborations can be so broad. There's strategic alliances, there's joint ventures, there's partnerships, there's intentional collaborations. There's lots of different structures of how these containers can be put together. And there's so much flexibility. Yeah. You could absolutely put together a collaboration where everybody's at a different level and doing a different role, but together that collaboration is driving true change in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Mindy, Suzanne, any additional thoughts on that?
Yeah, For me, I think because collaboration has become so much for me a place of expansion, I actually think it's better and more powerful when there's a variety of roles and perspectives. And, I'm a bit of an anti-hierarchical person. So I struggle a little bit with saying like this person has more value because they have this title than this person. I think when we're really collaborating in a powerful way, we're meeting each other human to human, and all of that stuff should be kind of left outside.
Nice.
And really, I think it's the most powerful, even within organizations. If I'm going into a business, for example, to help them with their grief gap, I want to talk to the frontline worker just as much as I want to talk to the CEO.
Yeah.
I want to talk to everyone in between because they all have something different that they're struggling with. The pain points are different.
Yeah.
And if we're going to create a holistic solution, we have to have all those voices at the table. It doesn't help me to just talk to leadership.
Right. Very true. Very true. Mindy?
Yeah, I do such a terrible job of introducing myself. I put in the comments earlier that I also co-founded the Creator Collab for Women. And that really is something where we bring women together in collaboration, like what we're talking about here. And what I love about a space like that is everybody is at a different level. And they can see, like, there are women that are a little more successful in their businesses, and that pulls the women who are trying to build their businesses. So I love the different levels, and everybody has some input. There's the perspective, no matter where you're coming from. So that's what I love about that space, is the collaboration is what fuels you, like up or down, or just around. So
Yeah.
let me say
Very
that.
good. Very good. Ladies, this is a great conversation, and I wish we could go on and on. However, we have come to the time to do our wrap-up round. And so I'm going to call on Cathy to lead that. Cathy, would you please have each person share their final thoughts on collaboration as well as their contact information? Okay.
Sure. Perfect. All right. And again, I'll go around my screen. So, Mindy, what's your final thoughts on collaboration?
Well, I was sitting here, like, witnessing the five of us together and realizing this is such a beautiful experience to show other people, right? We're not sitting here trying to one up each other. I mean, I know we talked about this, but I'm like listening deeply to connect with each of you on what you're saying. And I know you're doing the same thing because you're repeating things that I say, you're agreeing, you're also adding something to it. That to me is such a beautiful experience. So I think that I've just witnessed it and participated at the same time. And yeah, I'm just so grateful to be here, Cathy. Thank you for inviting me.
Perfect. And can you give us your contact? What's the best way to contact you?
You can email me. Well, you can always find me on LinkedIn as Mindy Maggio, but Mindy at Bridgeville, and Bridgeville's with a dash, BRIDGE-VILLE.com, Mindy at Bridgeville.com. And I also think I put in the comments, you can also look up the Creator Collab for Women at creator-collab.com.
Perfect. Thank you. Colleen, what are your final thoughts on collaboration?
So, yeah, I'm a huge fan of collaborations, and I just really think that women are naturally geared towards collaborative opportunities. And if you're out there trying to do it yourself and still trying to prove something in the world, then absolutely keep doing what you're doing. But if you'd like to do it a little bit of an easier way, do it with a little bit more fun, and actually take what you're doing to the next level by adding more people to the mix and adding their experience and their thoughts, their input, and everything that they've got to add in the world. To me, this is a better way to change the world. And so I just encourage women out there to embrace collaborations and embrace the money that you're leaving on the table by not participating in collaborations. 5 to 7 trillion and even bigger numbers than that is what we as women are leaving on the table by not, quote, participating the most effectively and efficiently we could in the business world. We as women are already creating about 50% of the new businesses in the United States right now, which is a big change that happened since COVID, actually, where this is our third year in a row to do that. We have such big potential, but if we don't run those businesses effectively and efficiently, then unfortunately we are going to burn ourselves out and not create the true change we want to in the world. And I believe collaborations are the key to that. If you want to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn. You'll find me as a chief table shaker, lead visionary, and head cheerleader for women in business. Thanks again, Cathy and Regina, for having me here.
Perfect.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you. Suzanne, what are your final thoughts on collaboration?
What I see happening in the world is a lot of people in distress, individually, collectively, countries, like every layer that you look at, it feels like sort of destruction and disorientation and nothing feeling sort of safe and secure is kind of the new normal. Disruption is the new normal. So if you want to move through that in a way that feels safe and in a way that actually feels like that has so much potential for growth and for us to actually co-create the world we actually want, the way to do that is through collaboration. We can't do that on our own. And I think because we've been trying for so long, that's part of how we've ended up in the mess that we're in. The way forward is through connectedness. It's through collaboration. It's through expanding our circles to touch each other and allowing people in. So, it was funny, Colleen, when you were talking and you're saying, keep working like that. I'm here to say, stop working like that. Don't do it. We cannot do this by ourselves. It's impossible. Our missions are too big. Our dreams are too big, and they're too important for us to stifle them by thinking we can do it all ourselves. Leverage what you're great at, outsource what you're not. That helps that person leverage what they're great at. This is how we build what we want. The best place to find me, LinkedIn, of course. I'm very grateful I have such an oddball name. It's easy to find Suzanne Jabbour. And that's my website as well. So you can reach out to me there at suzannejabbour.com. Everything you need is there.
Perfect. Thank you. And I'll throw in my final comments around collaboration. And I'll kind of sum it up to say that everything I'm doing right now would not be happening if it wasn't for collaboration. My whole business is focused on collaboration. And even if you'd asked me 5 years ago if I was going to be publishing books and bringing hundreds of women together to, share their stories, I would have thought you were crazy. But, listening to my intuition and my just natural collaboration tendencies has brought me to where I am now. And so I see it as a life-changing thing. And to find me, as we mentioned, my company name is Inspired Tenacity. So my website is inspiredtenacity.com. On LinkedIn, I'm Cathy Derksen, Inspired Tenacity. And on Facebook, I'm Inspired Tenacity.
I think we might find you under Inspired Tenacity. Oh, ladies, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all being here, and appreciate you, Cathy, for again agreeing to be co-host today and for bringing these amazing women with you. Thank you all.
Thank you for having us. We definitely all appreciate this opportunity. And
yeah, very good. And folks, we'll see you again next time on Collaboration Conversations. Bye for now.